So today we're going to be adding 2 coats of shellac to our Louis XV style French ladies writing table. Now we're just going to mix some shellac flakes up with some alcohol or methylated spirits. Now this is often called orange flake, but we tend to think it should be really called amber. As you can see, the flakes here, they add a beautiful amber glow to antique furniture, and that is how antique furniture was traditionally finished. Now we just add alcohol up to the same level as the shellac flakes, and then we just let that sit overnight. It does dissolve reasonably quick, and the consistency that we get is, it's very, very thin, but it's not thin. So it's kind of hard to sort of explain that. But if you get the consistency right, it will sit nice and flat when you brush it onto the table, and you won't get any runs. Again, it's still dissolving away there. So we'll just give it a bit more time, and it's still a little bit thin. Now we're just going to pull off these corners so we can get in and polish these corners without the brass being in the way, but we are going to leave the edging on. We can work around that. Now these nails are long, but the ones at the front are pretty short, so they're coming off pretty easy, and that will just make it a bit easier for us when we're rubbing the finish. Same with this one. Now we always make sure as well that we number the corners, as all the nail holes are in different positions. Now we have had some very, very hot, humid days in Australia, like 35 degrees, 90% humidity. So we put some heat into the timber before we put the shellac on. It just helps to stop the shellac blushing. It's not the best time to polish when it is humid or in cold conditions. Now we will be applying 2 coats, and we will cut back between each coat, and then we're going to add some clear beeswax that is going to add more of a matte finish than a shiny finish. Again, the first coat is more or less just to try and fill the grain with polish. Now Kingwood is quite a darkish timber. It is from the rosewood family. This piece has faded a lot over the past 100 years, so we cannot sand this piece of furniture at all, or we will ruin the patination. So we have to keep that faded finish. Now a lot of the inlay is raised up, which happens a lot with older furniture, and we just have to try and work our way around without sanding the top of the inlay at all. Now here, with the second coat on, any runs, we just get a utility blade and we just scrape the top of the runs off, and we just go over the top of the table looking for any runs. This is the best way, it just removes them quite easily. Again, we are polishing in humid conditions, so it is a bit more harder to polish, but we're getting there. And again, we'll just do this over the whole top. Any runs we find, and then we'll use our zero grade steel wool, going in zigzag patterns, which is the best way to get the top nice and flat. And again, you can see now how that's starting to smooth out. Now it will take a couple of hours to burnish this top back, so we will speed it up a little bit. But you can see now all the inlay that we replaced in the center of the table has blended in nicely. Now the sort of yellow color is the Kingwood, and the brown motif in the middle we think could be rosewood, but we have been told it could be babinga, so we're not really quite sure what that center timber is. If we were to sand that, it would probably come up almost like a black color, and the Kingwood would come up a darkish brown with a purple tinge. So you can see over the past 100 years how much the tabletop has faded. As much as we would like to sand these areas flat that are raised up, we cannot sand this top because it will just ruin the patination. So we have to work our steel wool in between all the inlay. So it's a bit like a carving on the top, and we're just making sure that we try and blend and smooth it in the best way we can. Again, if we were to sand this top, it would be a lot darker. A lot of these inlays would change colour with the different timbers that they've used, all the exotic timbers. The brasswork we're just going to burnish with some steel wool, so there's no need for us to take that off. And we have taken brass trimming off before, and it can be quite tricky to put back in place. Again, this one is raised up, as you can see here. We've just got to be careful that we don't sand them through. So all the inlay moves over the years, and you will find this with older antique tables, that the inlay does raise up, and that is a good way to find out if a piece is genuine. If it's totally flat, then it could be reproduction. Although a table like this, I doubt very much anyone would go to the trouble again to reproduce something like this. And we just keep smoothing out the top, being careful to get in around the flowers and the stems. Again, going in crisscross patterns is the best way to get the finish nice and flat. So we're just rubbing the top surface and then leaving the shellac in the grain, and then we'll apply the last coat again, and we'll repeat this again, but we won't film that. This is just to give you an idea how we finish our tops. You can add as many coats as you want, it depends how far you want to go, but with the colour of this table we only wanted to add 2 coats. We didn't want to add too much of the amber polish to the top. Again, this one is raised up, so we're just using our fingers to go around the motif and just blend it in as much as we can for the next coat. Now, Kingwood is a classic furniture wood. It's almost exclusively used in inlays and veneers on very fine furniture. It was one of the most expensive woods in general use for furniture making in the 17th century, at a time which it was known as princess wood, and it's a brownish purple colour, but obviously this has faded. So our lady's writing desk is made with princess wood. And then I suppose you would have to be a princess to afford a table like this back in the day. Now, a lot of these tables were polished like this in the 17th century, and they used to get blind women to rub the finishes back, and they would do that by sense of touch. Now all that inlay is smooth now. If you go back to the first video, you'll see how much of the veneer was missing, and there is a video where we cut all the inlay that was missing. Now we're just going to smooth out the legs and the front, and this is just the first coat, but we will be putting another coat after we've burnished it. But again, we won't film the second coat, we won't bore you with that. It's just to give you an idea of what we do. There is a veneer patch there that we had to put a little piece of veneer in. And we're just going to put some Van Dyke crystals to bring that colour very similar to the faded timber around it. And we will trim the bottom as well, just to make sure it's all looking good. Now there is a playlist for this restoration. The link will be in the description, so you can watch from the first episode. This will be our last episode. Now the restoration so far is around about 60 hours that we've put in to this table. Most of the work was in the inlay repairs on the top where it was water damaged. Now we're just going to use a different wax today, which is a clear wax. Now this wax is meant to leave a satin finish instead of a shiny finish, which we think will suit this piece more than a high gloss wax. And we're just going to rub the wax into the top in a circular motion, and then we'll sweep in longer motions, and then we will leave this wax overnight, and then we will burnish the wax back with 4.0 grade steel wool. And we'll get a nice sort of satin finish, and still keeping a traditional finish. And again, that inlay is quite spectacular. So it's the next day, and we've put the table out in the daylight, and that colour is quite spectacular. It's pretty hard to film on my phone, but it is absolutely glowing now. I'll just open the drawer, and all that beautiful inlay. And I will turn the table around so you can see the other side as well. And the sunlight is really popping on the top there. and a side view. So that's just about it for this one. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, throw us a comment. We do have some more interesting pieces that will be on the way, so look out for those. And thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.